All right, it is Sunday, the weekend of April 14th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Taking a look at the price action for the indexes last week, starting with the NQ. Kind of a wild week. Last week we had projected that we thought we were going to come back up to 18,460-ish. We got some serious chop and volatility on the way there, but we did end up making it up there for a big rejection on Wednesday. Ended up even sweeping the low that we'd held previously at 18,071 down here again on that day. This is just an absolutely wild day. About a 400 point swing intraday on that day. Holding the kind of this like key range that we'd identified for a while around here at between 18,170, 18,150-ish. Ended up actually getting what we were looking for and actually pumping to a gain over 18,462 before then dumping off into Friday and losing that whole gain again. So obviously extremely volatile week, not a lot of definitively gained price action here. However, I think the key thing to look at is that this is still a higher high and that we have not now made a lower low. So technically what the technicals are showing us is that even though this is like big volatile moves and that we've done a lot of gaining and losing levels, until we lose this low that we've held, there's not really a lower low in place and that longs are still on the table. With that said, this is, we're getting into a pretty precarious territory here. I think that what we really want to see is we need to see price regain up here, hold, and then move definitively higher above this level to gain here. If we're looking for shorts, what we can do is if we lose 18,070 that we've held a bunch of times, we can kind of lose, retest, and fail it for a bigger move down. Now you could also say if we come back up here and we fail it, retest and move down, then we're also likely to break this low and move down. But until we actually lose this level down here, we have no short confirmation given we've gained this range up here. I think that this move to regain is a bit more likely, just looking at the chart right now. Also, let's remove this, that we've done that. But until we kind of lose down here again, I think the key takeaway is that, we've gained up here, so there's no reason to suspect that we're going to lose this yet. I think that longs still look good on the table. The daily time frame is definitely uncertain as well. It's just a lot of really volatile price action on the NQ, but until we kind of lose this range down here at 18,070, there's no reason to say that we're reversing or looking for shorts on this chart at this point. Do you see anything different?
So for me, what I'm looking to see before I take any long-term longs, I want to see closes up above here, and then I would long this spot here at about 18,290, 18,300, trying to target the highs up there. Or I would also be cool with longing after all the stop losses
on a regain.
So I would on a regain. So I want to see price come all the way down here below all these stop losses, all these lows, and then I want to see it actually come back into the range, and I would buy it here, hoping to see back up here. That is the two options I would see, buying here after a close above, or here after a close below and a regain. That's what
I think that makes sense. It's definitely hard to kind of see all that in all this noise, but that makes sense, right? If we sweep the low and then regain by closing back into the range, then certainly taking a higher low entry and that would be a phenomenal risk reward ratio if you ended up getting somewhere in there. So I see why you're saying that. On the longer term time frame, we do still need to regain up here though, I think. So that's kind of what I see. If you were looking for, let's say this failed and this uptrend that we were describing was no longer valid, where would you look for shorts? What would need to be lost for you to be looking for shorts?
So for shorts, same thing. I'd be looking for shorts right here.
Yeah, okay.
If it doesn't close above,
That's what I was saying.
I'd be on the lower time frame after price comes up above here, looking for a failure to take. You know, just like that. This, if we do not gain 18,300, and then again your level at 18,000, 450 ish. On the weekly, it looks pretty spooky, or actually, rather, it's really not great. It's really not great if we don't regain that zone. We'll come. Let's see here. We'll probably come all the way down to 15,000.
It could be that bad.
So I'm not going to draw that.
No, but it's something to talk about. I think the key takeaway is that if we actually go back to the daily, it's really pretty obvious here that this, and we keep talking about 18,070 because that's the level that keeps holding, and is the level that we had failed to break above for a long time. To then, when we did, we produced all-time high. If this is the major level on the chart right now. If this fails and we definitively lose this, we're going to lose at least another 300 points. And this is, I would expect us to potentially lose much more than that, because this is something that on the weekly is also the big level. There isn't really an equivalent level until somewhere around, maybe down here 70,300-ish. And even then, that's kind of just stopping on the way up. The origin of that move is really kind of more down here at 17,000. So we could be giving that all that up if we end up losing 18,070. And I think that, again, on the weekly, the level to gain is kind of where we have it. We've been talking about it, right? 18,460 something. You can see all the wicking there, tried to hold, broke below, testing. Now we're moving lower. So definitely in a very precarious spot. I know we've kind of talked a lot about NQ this week, but this is probably the most uncertain chart because of all the volatility from last week, and it'll look a lot more clear on some of the other charts. But we just got to take what we see in front of us, right? So right now, if we regain these levels, we can move higher. If we sweep the lows and regain, we can move higher. If we fail these levels, we can move lower. Let's talk about the ES. Much more, again, definitive trend to the downside. We've kind of also at I would say a major level, right? So 5,100 and we'll call it 68, you can call it 70. That's the level that we broke above and then held to produce all-time high. So now we're retesting that again. If we can hold here, then we can potentially try to regain. Or if we lose this, we could take a much, much larger drawdown on the chart. I think the 4-hour kind of really shows you what we're looking for. I mean, locally, the level that tried to hold somewhere around here, and that kind of matches up right here. If we can regain 5,207-ish, then we can really kind of try to regain the origin of this failure that sent us down and potentially come back to all-time high. If we don't, then we could come back up here, fail that, and make new lows, and that would be a loss of the major level on the daily chart. So we could see a bigger, close to maybe another 100-point drop there. That's kind of what I see locally. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at the same spot. Same kind of look with before I'm willing to take longs. I want to see this gained, and then I'd be looking to long in this area, looking for higher. That makes good sense to me. It's a little harder to see there on the hourly. But if we don't see that regain, I would expect to see lower. And yeah, it's a pretty bearish look for me as well. You can see here on the weekly that we did come. This is the low that kind of produced the upswing there, and we are kind of printing below it. Yeah. So we can see it come retrace back up, but we need to see closes back up above, and that can produce higher highs.
Yeah, another thing to point out, just seeing it now, I mean, it's pretty obvious on the weekly as well, but, this box range that we have here, that is something that we tried to break above, and we sold off. We finally did. We just couldn't hold it, and now we're selling down again. But even more obvious on the daily, you can see where that was resistance. We ended up closing below, regaining, trying to hold, losing it again, and trying to regain it, failing, and now we're moving down. So premise is we need to either make an equal low or a new low lower than the previous low, which we have done, but that's why we're saying if we can't regain these levels, it looks like even lower. So that would be another 100 points maybe from where we're looking to looking for the validation point over here at say 52.10. But yeah, we'll have to see. Everything's in a very precarious spot, I would say, right now. We could see a pretty big move this week as a result. What are your thoughts on the small caps? What does RTY look like to you?
RTY looks pretty good. We can see here on the weekly we've come down below this swing, which is actually pretty spicy, but we do kind of expect a regain here and then an attempted higher. It has had a pretty good run up here, so it does make sense to be cooling off a little bit there. The areas we're looking for are definitely about 2090 here up above, but more locally you can see along as soon as we close up above the range that it tried to hold here, this kind of zone. If we can close up above, there is an opportunity for a long to see this swing play out and potentially gain all-time high, or not all-time high, but the high of the swing here again. What do you think?
I think that where we're looking at actually has great risk to reward from both sides, on the long and the short side of the chart. I think that if we can regain here, we have the potential to kind of take out, like you were saying, all the way back to a new high on this leg. That offers great risk to reward. That's a big move. It's almost 120 points. So that would be great. Additionally, because of kind of the area on the chart that we're at, if we come back up there and fail it, we're also looking at potentially a bigger drawdown from that position. At least kind of here, another 100 points. So I think that RTY is probably one of the better trades coming forward, like immediate trades coming forward. If we can get this retracement back up to 2040 and really kind of watch what price does when it gets here. If we can get a long entry, if it looks like it's confirming higher, or if it looks like it's failing and we can get a short entry here, I think both have the potential to be pretty big winning trades. Now, obviously, we need to kind of wait and see what price tells us to do. We don't want to say, like, oh, if it comes up here, we're looking for longs or looking for shorts. We need to see how price actually reacts when it gets there. But I think that this is definitely the area to be watching is 2043. Personally, I think we still haven't lost the uptrend, right? This is just a nice higher high, higher low look. If we do lose 2020, though, it looks very precarious. I would say that we could come back down to 1940, or even test the 0.618 of our fib pull down here at 1865. It would not be unreasonable. But
right.
If we can push to a new high on this long too, I mean, that's the extreme of range of the box, right? If we can gain that, we can gain another 150 points. So definitely watch 2043. I think that's the prime price target on the chart. Let's really try to make some good trades on that this week. I'm going to be looking for that for sure. Anything else to add before we move on?
This is the level it needs to regain locally that produced the swing up here on the weekly. And if it doesn't close back above in this range, like I don't want to say hoping for it, but we're expecting for longs to take place, it really is going to fail the whole swing here, and it's going to have to come down to the previous invalidation of
right. Yeah,
right here,
the failure that sent us to the low, which is literally right there on the line.
Right.
So it makes sense.
Right.
And that's also why 2043 is such an important level. This is actually the level that held to send us up initially. It is also the level that attempted to hold when we gained it and failed to send us down. So this is the level. That's in case it wasn't obvious why we're so adamant about that level in particular, just because that is a very, very long-standing. I mean, that's like 3 years worth of respect on that level. We really need to be watching what happens there. So, anyway, enough about RTY. What are your thoughts on gold? Kind of a wild Friday, huh?
Yeah, it is pretty wild. So first of all, just looking at this on the 4 hour, we have this really long swing, and if you zoom out at it, it just looks longer. Basically, almost straight up from 2000 all the way up to 2450. Let's just take a look at that. That's
Let's
wild.
admire that for a moment. It's 450 point pump.
Right. There's definitely like 2.5 trading days here that was a little sideways, not super sideways, because that's still $70 happening there a couple of times. But that's just a wild pump to see there. So what we can definitely expect to see here is you can see how locally we've got this zone here that we held and produced this last leg up. But what occurred is we came down and we failed that exact level right there. So we did the exact same thing that we just spoke about. Price has already done it. It came down to the level that put in the low that produced the high. So we've already done it. So what we want to see right now, locally on the 1 hour, is to see closes up above here. And then you could long here, hoping to be a test of this zone. Now, because of the strength of this swing, I think there is a good chance this just needs more shorts to come down a little further. It really looks like it won't continue, and it's going to need a little bit of cooling off, because this is gold all-time high. There are people who have been waiting to sell up at $2,400 for years and decades, and whatnot. And so that it really looks like it could come down here. Now, overall, it would still be a higher low opportunity, because of all this, where people are going to be seeing 2000, 2050, 2100 as just a really obvious long. For all-time high again. So I really do think it is a possibility that this is the domino that just flipped, and there's another opportunity to flip that same domino right up here that will bring it all the way back to 2150. Without saying that's not going to put all-time high in danger. It's just going to give it the fuel it needs to continue up again. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that even if we came all the way back down to the origin, somewhere around here, at 2070-ish, it would still, like you were saying, on the higher time frame, be a higher low. That's not in danger of removing the overall uptrend, and we've made a huge move, like you just pointed out. Let's get a little bit of clutter out of the chart, but yeah, I mean, price can't go straight up. However, it is also possible, I think you've identified the correct level, absolutely, clearly is the level that needed to hold and we failed it. It could also gain it and then use that and to go, a bit further up. I mean, we do have this fib marked out at 25.21. Again, that's just a projection. That does not mean that is definitive in any way, just an area to kind of look out for if we do end up continuing higher. But on the immediate chart, I absolutely agree with you. So we can come up here, retest this, fail it, and then kind of move even further down, or we can gain it and kind of do one of these. We'll kind of have to see which one ends up happening. I think that based on this hold, it's likely that we either get some kind of bounce up here and then move back up here, or we could bounce here and fail. But I think the one thing that I'm looking at is, and your price range is the same, so I see this locally before we got actually sent up here. This was the level that needed to hold. We gained it, lost it, and then as soon as we gained it again, we kind of retested the range below, and that just slurped enough liquidity to send us up. You could call that a box, like a range. So if this whole range is kind of something we're looking at, it makes sense that we would tap that and move kind of further up. If we can, and that's why your arrow looks like that, right? Is if we
Right.
can gain this and hold it and go, then we can try again here. From a risk to reward standpoint, I think it's very obvious that this range that you've marked out is the best trade as a short, right? I mean, if we're going to potentially make a new low lower than this low because we fail this range, you know, we're looking at maybe down there. That's 87 points on gold. That's a huge move. It could be even more if we lose more than that. Whereas the test to the upside is, you know, it's maybe you could call it better if we place our fib, but we've got this huge retracement open. So I mean, what's the likelihood on that trade versus the other one? Because the short potentially has a I mean, that could become one of these, like a 200 point short. Theoretically, we could retest the 1.618 on that. So all that is to say, we care a lot about what's going to happen up here at 24,010-ish, somewhere in there. It's a range, so you can kind of see what's going to happen. We'll have to watch that area, but if this holds, we can move higher. If not, we can move lower. So not really much else to say. I think you nailed it on this one. You have anything else before we move on?
I think gold, along with all of these, this whole week, I think there's the highest chance that something is going to gap on the open here in 40 minutes. That's what I think, and I think that is what's going to decide which one of our ideas here plays out. But yeah, nothing specific.
Yeah, there's been some news over the weekend, so it's very likely. Let's check the Dow. You know, if the other major indexes were a little bit more uncertain, S&P was a little bit clearer, but the Dow is certainly very clear. This is the beginning of what looks like a potential reversal, I would say. It hasn't completely lost the major level, which I would say is probably around here, 38,000. And that's just because this was the area of consolidation that we couldn't break above, and then we did break above, and we held it, and that ended up causing this pump. We've had a series of lower highs and lower lows, though, so clearly until that trend is reversed, we are in a downtrend on the lower time frames. You know, on the weekly, we still technically haven't lost anything, but I think the major thing to look at here is that we really need to come back up and regain 39,100 if we're going to regain the uptrend aspect on this chart. What I personally see is that if we can't, we could sweep this low, regain it, and then kind of do one of these and start potentially regaining up here. Or we could do the opposite. We could retrace. We could fail this and then continue to move down, which would look very bad given the level that we would be losing. Or we could come all the way back up to this level that I think that we need to regain, fail that there too, and then continue the downtrend. But if we can regain this, we can potentially try to recapture the uptrend. I think that at this point, that looks unlikely, but it's possible. What do you think?
Well, I think on the weekly here, this is the level that we really want to see hold, but it printed below it. So I think it's a short area at 39,100. That's really hard to see. Sorry.
No, you're fine. That's why I was using the 4 hour.
So, yeah, I think this whole zone here looks like short territory to me. And I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but it definitely looks like we're gonna.
It absolutely has the potential to give a
point.
retest of those areas. Yes, completely agree with that.
I think it's coming all the way down to 34,000.
The origin of the move.
Not straight away, of course. It'll have opportunities to regain here at 37.4 after it prints a new low there. It even has an opportunity to regain now, just like we're talking about.
Exactly.
Back up
well, that's
39.
kind of the last area. Otherwise, it looks like it wants to give up everything. So.
Right. So either it closes above 38,800 and it's another chance to get back to 40,000 honestly, or it continues down and probably goes all the way down to 34,000.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
And that actually wouldn't, people are gonna, let's talk about this for a second. If that happens, people are gonna be freaking out, right? Absolutely losing their minds. And, that wouldn't be great, but that would still be, if this is the low, right, on the higher, we'll call it the monthly, that would be a really good area for a long, right? So that would just be, we've gained this, and if we came back down here, we could use that, especially look at all the interest at that level. That would be a nice, strong area to look for a long. We still have to respect price action, we want to see a hold, and then take a retest, but then it would look good for continuing the uptrend. We would still have to regain this level, like the previous failure that sent us down. But it's important to stay rational when people are panicking and saying that the market is crashing. But I think you're totally right. I think that this 34,400 level is very much on the table if we end up continuing to the downside.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did I highlight something on the monthly there? Sorry about that for interjecting here. So we do see very locally these lows that it came down to. So there, and the stair stepping, it's visible in there if you are familiar with, have a lot of experience looking at candles. And we have this zone here on the monthly that needs to hold. Otherwise, that is a local loss. Now, the good news is that when we see a local loss of the level, we expect it to come down, and even on the monthly, it's the same spot. So it's the same spot on all time frames here, and that's why I'm feeling pretty confident that this is the area we need to see retested after this is closed below, because this produced the low and also is what we regained to spark the trend up, and so that's why it's the area we're looking at right here to be able to return to all-time high. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can see it like you were talking about on every time frame. I mean, it's actually extremely common to see origins retested or failures that sent us up retested. And even though it's a big ass time frame, the monthly still applies. Like, we could absolutely test the monthly origin of this leg. So, I think that not only is that likely, it's the best long on the entire chart by a mile. Like, it's going to offer an incredible risk-to-reward ratio, because then if you're targeting that as a long, you can, and if we're going to continue the uptrend, because that would still be on the monthly a higher low, you're targeting a higher high, and that's a huge move. I mean, how much percentage is that? 20%? Maybe a little bit less? 18% at the, like, if you took the high, that's a huge trade. That's a great move. I think that's extremely likely. There's going to be people saying that, let's target the, the failure that sent us down from the previous all-time high area that we lost for 22. That's not off the table, but I think that there's going to be more interest down here, and I think they're going to want to push price more into this area for sure.
Precisely. I think the level you brought up is one of those places it will attempt at, but I think this is the spot that you need to wait for the highest likelihood of returning to all-time high. Like, this is an opportunity, but I believe this is the zone.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad we drew a box there, because it's, we draw lines to kind of make things more easy to see, but especially in higher time frames, you're not going to call it to the point on a huge time frame like that. So that's kind of the range we're looking at. And it makes sense, right? That's the first area that regained and produced a higher low that sent us up in reverse the whole time, the whole thing. So makes sense. Enough of that though. But I'm glad we talked about what to expect when that happens. Oil. What are your thoughts on oil? Personally, I think that it's it's been a pretty wild consolidation, a lot of volatility there, but it's happening at higher highs, so I could still see this continuing to come up. I'm not opposed to the idea of it retracing a little bit, but I think that as long as it holds this range, we're just going to keep moving up.
Me too. I think that the monthly is the only thing that matters on oil. We've done exactly what we just talked about after we lost the low that sent the top of the swing. This was the short. It brought us all the way down to the origin that sent us down. It's the perfect look on the monthly. That's why they're going to be able to do almost anything they want to make it look spooky on the lower time frames, which is why they did this slurp to the upside, get fresh shorts, and slurp to the downside, because they're just trying to knock all the liquidity out and put it in their pockets. Because it's very obvious what's about to happen on oil. We've been saying it for months.
It's about to
we've
blast
been saying
off.
It all year.
It's about to blast off.
It's about to blast off. Yeah. So even if we did see lower lows, I really would expect to see any.
All dips will be bought, in my opinion. I truly believe that.
That's my humble opinion. Is that even if we do see down here, I do believe we'll see it bought back up. And there's a really good chance that, and you can see it here, these candles are very large, that on the 4 hour you will not get an opportunity to see it once it's produced the low and then been bought back up. You won't get an opportunity down here. You won't get an opportunity to get a good fill. Now on the smaller time frames, this is not going to work well. Though the hourly might do a little better. On the smaller time frames, you still might get an opportunity. Not that deep, but you might be able to do something like that. So watch the 4 hour, but also watch the lower time frames and make sure that's where you're looking for your order. That's probably too low.
But it's all the concept applies. I'm in complete agreement with you. I'm not opposed to. I think we could see that box at the lower touched, and I'm not. I'm just talking about possibilities. I also believe that that's not going to happen. We're probably just going to hold and go. But if that does happen, there's nothing that invalidates anything that we're talking about here. I think that we would probably just touch the high of the range, slurp that shit, and just keep going. That's what I think is going to happen if this even happens at all. But everything kind of points to continuing up. There's really not too much to say about oil. Nothing has really changed, even though, candlestick readers are going to say that this is a really bearish candle. I don't think it matters. It held the range, so I think it's all fine.
It looks pretty ugly on the daily. No, just that it, on the hourly, again, the market's very efficient at making it spooky to play, but you wait for the low and then for them to regain, and that's the opportunity. And there's a very likely chance that that's exactly happening right here. This is the low, and they're about to gain it.
Yeah. And again, we're honing in on the smaller time frames, but as you pointed out, if we look at the monthly, this is a higher low, and we've pushed to a fresh high in the last leg. So keeping the higher time frame trend in the back of your mind is very important when we're trying to identify these ideas, because until we lose 70. We literally are not going to have a lower low to reverse this potential uptrend reversal. And I think that this is just so obvious that we're going to absolutely blast off. We can talk about how we might see these downward trends before we move higher on the lower time frames, but over time we are absolutely continuing to look for longs. So just keep that in mind when you hear people telling you what they think about certain commodities or certain sectors.
Mhm.
Just look at the chart. The chart tells you everything. What are your thoughts on the dollar? Pretty huge gain.
Yeah, pretty big gain. We want to see it hold the top of the range here. Ideally the weekly level there, but it is a box kind of idea. So, anything that looks like this is real good. That is a very bullish look. It'll definitely lead to 109 that we've been talking about all year. If it doesn't hold the top here, it's going to come down to 105 here, 105 point. We'll call that 0.2. And if it doesn't regain, we will expect 104.6. But and that would still be a pretty good higher low look here on the longer time frame. What do you see?
I mean, I'm looking at the exact same areas that you are. I think one of the things that I like on the chart is kind of just reading the wicks here is, this area is that's the high that didn't, attempted to hold to move back up when we were at the last high. Couldn't do that. We lost it, and then we tried to regain it, and then, I wouldn't call this the exact failure point, but this was the high of the range. Like, if this is a box, sort of, then that's the extreme high there, and we kind of closed right on it. So if we can gain this, come back and test that, that would be a clean entry for making a new high.
Yeah.
So I really like your level there. I'll delete that, though, just so we have more clarity on the chart. And I really like your level at 104.6, because I think that if we are going to get some kind of cool-off period, this kind of area between this level at 104.8 or 104.6, that makes the most sense, given that those were the areas that kind of struggled to hold for continuation, so it would make sense that we test those for higher. Kind of a similar look to that of oil. We've really on the higher time frames made our first higher high and higher low, and we're continuing to just kind of grind higher. Just feel like we're going to keep moving up. I mean, I feel like you've explained all the technical sides of the chart. I just don't see anything that's going to get in the way of this uptrend now. I think there was some, you could say there was an argument against seeing those highs that we'd been calling for until maybe a week or two ago. I mean, blasting above this now and closing at 106. I mean, we were calling for 105.8 as like, well, that it has to test a failure. It didn't care. It just blasted right through and closed above. So that's a gain. Nothing to say other than I think we're just going to keep moving higher.
Yeah, I think it's playing out. That's all.
Starting to play out. And that could happen real quick if this momentum keeps moving. So, last thing, the banks. Kind of an interesting week on the daily. We had an initial pump on Monday back into our range, and then it failed and sent us down, kind of starting to play out with our idea for a bearish failure kind of look. Doesn't mean that we can't regain this level, like that we had potentially pointed out here, and regain here, but until we regain 47, now that we've closed below, we might be expecting this box. For sure. I mean, this is definitively a lower low now, so we've got to do a lot of regaining before we can start expecting higher again. I don't know. I think we're probably going to end up seeing somewhere in this box 45, 44. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more likely that we'll proceed down to 44. But this is the level to look at. So it's very similar to all the other charts. It's right here is a no long zone until we're up above 47, and then we can hope for a higher low, and that's the higher likelihood of playing out instead of just smashing long right here, because right here you're trying to catch a falling knife.
Yeah, we want to see it put in a higher high first.
On the lower time
right,
frames.
Yes, not on the big time frame. Yeah, we want to see price tell us that it's trying to come back.
And that's what this is, and that's why this would be the opportunity area.
Right.
So longs could be an opportunity after it comes below these shorts, and that's why we kind of expect to see it come down to this box, and then same thing. We'd be looking for this kind of pattern to play out after that new low. What do you think?
I mean, I agree with all of it. I'm thinking this is such a long period of consolidation. I think we have to go lower to go higher. That's what I think. I think we have to retest this origin here that sent us up. Kind of like we've been discussing on this whole video. Is, these origins, these big moves are absolutely on the table. I think this makes a lot of sense. We'd come and retest here and then potentially look for... This could be the area that gives us the liquidity we need to move higher. Doesn't mean that I'm expecting reversal here. I'm just saying that I think this is much more likely than seeing up here now. I mean, we've tried to break above 50.5 twice now after failing it, and so I think we need to move lower.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I don't think there's anything else to add unless you have something you'd like to at the end. I think we covered it all.
Nope. I think we're gonna expect some gaps.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's been a lot of kind of talking about both sides this week because we are at such kind of make or break levels on a lot of the charts. So, we say this a lot, but we're gonna have to see kind of what price does. I would not be surprised for this to be an extremely volatile week, or like you're saying, a bunch of gaps on the open in about 15 minutes or so. So. It's gonna be something to kind of identify the major levels and watch price like a hawk on the lower time frames, get your good entries. RTY looks good, especially. I really like that one. We'll have to track that chart in the Discord. With that being said, thanks again for tuning into the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. See you next week.
Till next time.